Greetings, everyone. I am so excited to be here. My name is Simone Lee, and I am a certified doula. I'm also a certified lactation counselor and Lamaze certified childbirth instructor, and also a Reiki master teacher and placenta encapsulation specialist. So I'm super excited to be here. You could probably tell I'm a little nervous as well, but we cannot live inside our comfort zones, right? So I'm super excited to be a part of this IG takeover for the NBDA. I am here to talk about the importance of increasing access to lactation support in rural areas. And as a lactation counselor, as a Black mom, as a doula, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And I'm super excited to be able to share some of, the studies that I've done to kind of talk about where we are. So I'd like to start with thanks to the NBDA for this opportunity, and also a huge thanks to my ancestors, both locally and spirit that is always around and that always leads my work. I'd like to pay homage to Maud Callan, who her work, she actually did her work about 5 miles away from where I was born and raised. Also Septima Clark and Eugenia Broughton, whose spirits guide all of us as birth workers in our fields. So a little bit more about me. I'm a rural girl. I'm a country girl from Cross, South Carolina. So rural areas and rural care is something that is super near and dear to my heart. I have a strong Gullah Geechee heritage, and you probably can hear the Charleston and country in my voice, but that is something that I'm super proud of. Like I said, I am a certified doula, certified lactation counselor, Lamaze certified childbirth instructor, and Reiki master teacher. So I'm all about the energy. So why we're here, increasing access to lactation support for National or Black Breastfeeding Week. We're talking about increasing access to lactation support in rural areas. And so why does this matter, right? We know that the World Health Organization recommends exclusively breastfeeding for 6 months of life. But we're not there. We're nowhere near where we need to be. And it's up to us as birth workers, as Black folk, as, community members, to be able to increase these numbers. So it's time for us to take some accountability, and it's time for us to do what we can to be able to improve these rates, increase these numbers, provide better outcomes for our moms and babies. So how do we do that? We know that somewhere around 77% of families breastfeed at the start, but by 6 months of age, we're down to about 43%, and 22% at 1 year of age. So we understand that we have a far way to go when it comes to meeting our mark. We know the disparities that exist for our Black and brown moms as it relates to maternal and fetal outcomes. And we know that those rates are so much higher in rural areas. In countries like Rwanda and other African countries, it's kind of flip-flopped. You see a lot of rural families are the ones who have the most or increased breastfeeding rates. And then in the suburban areas, those rates are much lower. But in the United States, it's kind of flip-flopped. Our rural areas are seeing a lot less breastfeeding rates, and there is a reason for that. So, and we want to just talk about what those reasons are. We want to talk about why it matters. And lastly, we want to talk about what we can do to be able to increase these numbers and improve our outcomes for our moms and our families. So here are, first we'll talk about the benefits. So we know the benefits just right offhand, but let's talk about some of the benefits that we might not hear about. So stronger immune systems for babies. And these are benefits for babies right now. Stronger immune systems, less diarrhea, constipation, gastroesophageal reflux, and preterm birth. We know that they have fewer colds, respiratory illnesses like pneumonia and respiratory RSV, fewer ear infections, fewer cases of bacterial meningitis, and also better vision, lower rates of infant mortality, lower rates of SIDS, lower illness overall, and less hospitalization. And then parents have up to 6 times less absenteeism from work. So those are just a few of the benefits for the baby. When we talk about benefits for mom, you're talking about a lower risk of breast cancer, a lower risk of ovarian cancer, lower risk of rheumatoid arthritis and lupus. Also, fewer instances of endometriosis, less osteoporosis, less diabetes, less hypertension, less cardiovascular disease, and less time missed from work for illnesses. So just in that, those just giving those benefits should be enough for an individual to at least be interested in breastfeeding their babies. So now that we've talked a little bit about the benefits, let's talk about why does this matter? Why do we want to increase our breastfeeding rates? And what can we do as a community to be able to bring us from where we are currently to where we need to be? We want our breastfeeding rates to be at 100%. We know that there are very few contraindications to breastfeeding, and we want to be able to empower our families. We want to be able to talk about the risks and the benefits of breastfeeding versus not breastfeeding. We want to talk about what to do in the event that there is a poor latch. But the only way that we can do that and the only way that we can meet our numbers is for us to be able to provide education for our families, which means that we have to educate ourselves. And we have to get to a point where we take self-accountability and we also focus on our own body autonomy and not worry more about what other people may think or say about what our preferences are. So let's talk about some of the reasons for low breastfeeding rates. And if you can think of some that I haven't said, just drop it in the chat box. Reasons for low breastfeeding rates in rural communities specifically, but this can go for a lot of different geographical areas, not just rural communities. So for rural communities, first of all, it's geographical isolation. A lot of our families are so far away from their providers, which also means that they don't have a lot of access to quality care. So the care that they may receive may not be the best care overall, and they may be able only have a few options as it relates to their care providers. Lack of assistance from the medical staff. We know that in Black communities, the medical staff is less likely to even discuss breastfeeding. So it's up to us as birth workers and as family members and as community members and as activists to be able to empower and to initiate these conversations with our families so that they can know the benefits, so that they can know that they have a support group and that they know that there are people who are interested in their well-being and their outcomes. We also know that there is a reduced normalization. Breastfeeding just isn't normalized a lot in the Black communities, and there's a reason for this. We know that it's strategic that formula is pushed in the Black community, and we want to be able to allow our families the opportunity to gain the education necessary to know that breast is best. Providing human milk to human babies is what we all need to be focused on right now, especially with formula shortages and things like that prevalent right now. So another one is poverty. We don't think of poverty, and we think poverty would be a reason why people choose to breastfeed, but a lot of times poverty is a reason why people choose not to breastfeed. People have to go back to work within 6 weeks and sometimes even less than that. Trauma. We have different types of trauma that kind of is one of the factors for why people may not choose to breastfeed. Generational trauma. If you haven't seen your mom or your auntie or your sister breastfeed, then you may be less likely to breastfeed as well. We have so many things that are passed down generationally, and we want to be able to dispel a lot of those and be able to heal our community. Physical and sexual trauma are also reasons why people choose not to breastfeed as well. So we want to be able to help process this information, make sure that we give people the necessary resources to be able to combat and to be able to heal and process the traumas that they may have experienced in order for them to be able to feel comfortable and safe enough to breastfeed or chest feed their babies. Another reason, and I already discussed, the need to return back to work. We need so many different resources available, and we need to be able to, and I'm going to talk about what we can do in a second, but the need to return to work is a huge reason why a lot of our families choose not to breastfeed or choose not to breastfeed for the recommended 6 months. Education. There is a lack of education in the community, and there's also we just don't talk about it. So people don't know what the risks, what the benefits are. They don't know the ease of it. They hear the bad stories. We share the bad, but we don't share the good. So that's another reason why education, sound education, evidence-based education is important to be able to pass to our families. Also, the absence of the granny midwife. When I was referring to our Maud Callens and our Septima Clarks, those are the people who informed our communities and had a stronger tie to our outcomes. Right now, with the removal of the granny midwives or professional midwives in general, we have less conversation, we have less support, and we have less access to people who look like us and the people who care about our overall well-being and our outcomes. So why does this matter? We've talked about some of the benefits. We talked about some of the reasons why our breastfeeding rates are so low in rural communities and others as well. But let's talk about why this matters. It matters because we want better health and better outcomes for our moms and babies. I am tired of our moms dying. I am tired of our babies dying. It is time for us to take some accountability. It is time for us to educate ourselves. And it is time for us to be able to hold the individuals accountable who need to be accountable to improve our breastfeeding rates. Another reason, the recent formula shortage. There were so many people who did not have a way to feed their babies, and it actually saddened my heart because there's nothing greater than the life of a baby, and for an individual to not be able to feed them is heartbreaking. So we want to be able to give the information not just about lactating, but relactation. Like once you've lactated once, there's this thought that we never stop. The ability to make milk lies dormant until there's stimulation and until the proper hormones are released to be able to lactate again. So those are the times that we need it during the formula shortages and other issues. We know that during famines and different environmental events, women are still able to feed their children. And we want to be able to provide as much resources and education as possible to our families who are interested, and be able to tell them and provide the support that is necessary for them to be able to do so. Better outcomes for mom and babies. We talked about the benefits. We talked about how beneficial it is for our families, our businesses, our babies, our mothers to be able to receive human milk. Lower insurance payouts because we have a lesser chance of hospital visits and illnesses. So it would be beneficial for insurance companies to be able to provide funding to increase access and even cover, doula services and lactation services for our moms and our families. Protection of Gullah Geechee and other cultural practices. These are our roots. These are things that are embedded in us. We know innately what is necessary for us to feed our babies. It is time for us to be able to say, this is who I am. This is who I love. This is how I choose to feed my child. And these are the practices that we are trying to get back to as a community. And why not start with where life begins? We talk about connecting with our roots in so many different ways, but this is truly where it begins, where life begins, and we can start by providing human milk to human babies. Also, a healing of the community. we need to heal. Our community as a whole, we have so many things that has held us back and has oppressed us. But this is a freedom all in and of itself. This in and of itself is kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a resistance. Breastfeeding our babies is a resistance, and this is something that no one would be able to take from us. So in and of itself, it can be a healing opportunity for our communities and for our families. So next we'll go into what we can do. And you can drop in the comments. I saw Miss Adrian there. I saw a couple other names that I knew. Tell us, what can we do as a community to be able to provide access to not only rural communities, but other communities to be able to increase our breastfeeding rates. The first thing that I would like to mention is we need paid maternity leave. We need an extended paid maternity leaves. We are the most developing country, but we have the least amount of maternity leave available for our families when they choose to have their children. Also, we need community support in the form of support groups. If you live in an area and there is a lack of support, look at beginning some type of breastfeeding support group, or a La Leche League, or a sister circle, where individuals who look like us and sound like us can be able to provide peer support to our families who are in need. Also, we need culturally responsive care training and trauma-informed care training for our IBCLCs, for our doulas, for our nurses in the hospitals. Those are things that is policy change, and those are things that are needed in order for people to be able to make a connection with individuals of color. Also, we need more IBCLCs, more CLCs, more peer counselors who look and sound like us, because we do better as a people statistically when we're served by people who look like us, who have the same struggles as us, who have the same cultural component as us. These are things that we can do to be able to increase our rates. Also, community activism. We like to get out there and march about a whole lot of different things. Why not create activism that surrounds birth work, that surrounds our maternal mortality and morbidity, that concerns our fetal and babies' outcomes, their mortality and morbidity. Let's create support groups and other activism opportunities where we can talk to people about what it is that our community needs. A lot of times people come in and try to tell us what we need, but why not let us be the ones to tell others what it is that we are requesting? Also, the national expansion of coverage for doula and lactation support. Right now in the state of South Carolina, which we know has a huge rural population, the only ways that doula services and lactation services are covered is by TRICARE. And we know that although we have a decent military population, that doesn't even scratch the surface of who our services cover. So we want to be able to increase the access. We know that the people that we're most passionate about are least likely to be able to afford our services. So there needs to be an expansion of doula services coverage and also lactation coverage as well. We need to elicit policy change, and we do that by engaging our state and local representatives. We do that by voting in our midterm and national elections. We do that by making sure that our voices are heard by any means necessary. And by the same token, we have to hold our policymakers accountable. They have to know what our needs are. They are there to fight for us. We have to tell them what our demands are in order to be able to provide some type of change to our birthing families and to our breastfeeding and chest feeding families. And we can also normalize breastfeeding. If you are a breastfeeding mother, Stage a nurse in. Nurse out in public if that's something that you're comfortable with. Let our babies see us breastfeeding, chest feeding our babies with human milk so that it becomes normalized again in our culture, because it once was. But we know that there are so many things that happened historically that have caused us to reduce the amount of breastfeeding and chest feeding that we provide for our babies. And lastly, we can hold ourselves accountable by knowing our laws and our rights. We have to know what is available to us. We have to know that anywhere that we are legally allowed to be, that we are legally allowed to feed our children. We also know that we have to know that if an employer has more than 50 employees, by law, they are required to provide a location that is not a bathroom where a mother can express milk or feed their child. We have to know the laws. Those are things that we have to be aware of so that we can pass that information along to our families and to our birthing people, to let them know that there are laws that protect us wherever we are in society. And that kind of closes out, the things that I wanted to talk about. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them from the chat. I can finally look at those now. And thank the NBDA again for the opportunity. I wanted to make this short and sweet because I know that after a certain amount of time, people zone out. But this is really about how do we increase access to lactation support in rural and other communities. Any ideas or questions in the comments? Oh, someone asked me to introduce myself. So my name is Simone Lee. I am a certified doula, certified lactation counselor, Lamaze childbirth instructor, and placenta encapsulation specialist, and Reiki master teacher. I can be followed at Birthing with Purpose on Instagram and on Facebook. That is the name of my business, Birthing with Purpose. I see a question from Keontae. How does a new mother get over the anxiety and shame that comes with public breastfeeding? The key is education and support. We have to be able to know what our rights are. We have to know that this is something that is innate and natural within us. And we have to be able to be proud enough. Breastfeeding is something to be proud of. And that framing is something that is necessary as well. Changing the perspective from shame to pride. That is one of the biggest things that we can do. Well, okay. Thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you again to the NBDA for allowing us this week to be able to take over their Instagram so that we can share information about breastfeeding during Black Breastfeeding Week. So I hope that you all had, I see one more question. Can I share other certifications a doula should have? And that's completely up to the doula themselves. I try to be that one-stop shop for families. We know that if they're looking for doula support, they're probably going to need assistance with lactation as well. We know that they may be interested in placenta encapsulation. We know that an extensive childbirth education piece is imperative as well. It doesn't start at doula services. It starts at preparing way beforehand. And as doulas, there's only so much that we can do in the visits that we see them in, but being able to provide an extensive childbirth education that not only talks about labor and delivery, but also breaks down anatomy and physiology, that also talks about the hormones that are at play during labor and delivery and during pregnancy in general and postpartum. Those are things that are super important for us to be able to tell our clientele, and also the importance of diet and nutrition. Those are all things that we need to do. But to answer your question, it's whatever the person is comfortable with, but I want to be able to provide as many services to my families as possible so that they can be able to have a one-stop shop and not have to look in so many different places for the things that they're in need of. Okay, and you're welcome. Thanks, Shelly, for your kind comment. All right, so you guys have an amazing afternoon. May the ancestors guide and protect you. And thank you again to the NBDA for allowing us to take over their platform to be able to express our passions and the things that we truly care about as doulas and lactation professionals during Black Breastfeeding Week. Happy nursing.